This is just really, to be honest, it's a variation on the thread quill pattern. I say variation, it's effectively the same fly. It's just a slightly different colour. For no other reason than it just so happens it's the thread I've got in my bobbin. I'm on the river tomorrow and for a team practice. And the river is high, it's ripping, and I need some flies with some significant weight. That'll hunt. I'll get some fish with that tomorrow. The way the format of the World Championships basically works, it's a team of 5 men and we fish on 5 different venues over 5 days. So those teams are split into the 5 groups. If there's 25 teams, there's 25 people in each group. And each of those groups, numbered A, B, C, D, E, will rotate through the 5 venues. So let's say I'm in Group A, and my group of 25 anglers, we go to river whatever on the first day, lake whatever on the second day, then the river, then the lake, then the river, whatever our rotation is. And we only compete against the people in our group. So if I win my group, I get 1 point. If I don't catch anything, I get 25 points because that's equal to the number of people in the group. So basically the goal is to have as few points as possible come the end of the competition. Now how you actually generate those points is obviously by catching fish, but you'll have a controller with you, and the controller stays with you throughout your fishing session, and he will be there to make sure you follow the rules, make sure you treat the fish with care and you don't cause them any damage. If a fish dies on you, you lose the points for that fish, so that's very important. And he's there to record your score. So if I catch a fish and it's 20 centimetres, which is the normal minimum limit you're allowed to set, I get so many points for it being 20 centimetres, and then I get some additional points for its length. So really, it's better to catch a high number of small to average size fish than a small number of big fish. Really what you're fishing for is the honour of representing your country and placing high. There's individual medals, obviously, first, second and third, and then there's team medals, first, second and third. It is predominantly a team competition. Yeah, so as a team we try and get together. Everyone's got busy diaries. It usually ends up being once, to be honest. Ideally we'd be out 2, 3, 4 times. It just doesn't happen. The team's too geographically spread. We stay in touch through a WhatsApp group. We're always chatting more or less every day, but we get together for pretty much one weekend. We do some practice, we do some one-on-ones, which they absolutely hate, I think, because basically it consists of usually the newest member in the team who's not had to experience it once already, fishing, and I'll sit on the bank and I have a clipboard which I get mercilessly taken the mick out of for, which I'm used to make notes in. The fishing over there is not like this, obviously, other than the fact it's a wild river with wild trout in it and grayling, so in that respect it's similar. But obviously those rivers are varying between quite small and skinny water, and then you've got a slightly bigger one with some grayling in, which is actually a little bit similar to this in places. But in general what it'll be over there is it'll be finessey fishing, a lot of it. So it will be probably lighter beads, thinner leaders, making sure you've got good drifts on your dries, which we'll do a little bit later on because Tony wanted to do some stuff with that sort of folded leader presentation, basically Spanish dry fly style, which we've done a bit of before. But obviously, because Chris, unfortunately for him, is the new man in the team,
the deep end.
In the deep end, and picked the first time we've had a camera with us. He unfortunately gets the integration into the team with a lot more pressure than the rest of you. For the other three lads, just go and have a fish, but don't just all spread off and fish willy-nilly and have a race to see who can catch the most fish or the biggest fish or whatever. Fish together as a team, you know, within a bit of range of each other, because when we get over there, when we get to France, we'll have about a week and a half of practice, and the reality is we're going to be competing against an extremely organised, very, very experienced groups of 5 and 6 other anglers who will all work as one team. The current way that world and European teams are selected is through a process called the EPP, or the Elite Performance Programme. That's been going since about 2018, I think it was, maybe it started. And that was a departure from the old system where you basically used to get selected by the manager and the committee. They used to decide who was going based off previous results and previous results at home international level. We wanted to try and get away from that because, you know, there were some quite high profile anglers who weren't getting picked and threw loads of bricks at the process saying, oh, it's fixed, it's because he's his friend, it's because, you know, whatever. So we tried to change that process to something which was more competitive, where people had to compete. We had a league system created which is not dissimilar to the way the Czechs do it and some of the other top teams. And as it stands at the minute, the current England team is picked via that league system. You fish, you make the team on merit. You know, if you don't fish well enough, you don't make the team. You know, that's as brutal as it is. I'm going to peg the very, very tail of this pool, and when Chris asks me where the pegs are, I'll tell him it's around the bridge. And often what people do when they're new is they'll take your word for it exactly and they'll go, oh, it's at the bridge, without looking. And that's what happens sometimes in these comps. The controllers will say, oh, the peg's round that corner, and you look and you think, oh, that round the corner doesn't look very good, I'll not bother, I'll stay here because this looks lovely. And then at the end of it, when you may be walking off your beat, you suddenly realise you've got an extra 10 or 15 yards of fishable water. So it's a little bit sort of tricky, if you like, when I do these sort of training sessions, but I do it to make sure that they don't make all the mistakes I've been making for years at the start, and then I'll put the other one lower down as well, and we'll see whether, when I give him time to review it, he actually goes and looks for the pegs. If he looks and he reads it proper, he should spend his time in the most likely spots, and that's part of what it's about, is just making good decisions. I've stuck 2 white pegs in.
Oh, have you?
Aye, there's one near the bridge,
right. So
just basically right around the bridge.
Right, okay.
And I've just put one down in at this pool tail here.
All right, okay.
So that's what you've got to play with. I'll give you time to, you know, to look at your beat and work out what you want to do, and just make of it what you can. I'll give you an hour and a half.
Okay.
So an hour and a half of fishing, and then we'll just have a chat at the end of it. The more serious you take it, the more you'll get out of it. This is the bit they've all come to fear, which is totally unreasonable, but all I did was, because when I started, I was really left to struggle to a large degree. It took me 7 or 8 years before I started getting reasonable results, because I made a lot of mistakes. So these sort of 3 pages really cover a lot of the stuff I got badly wrong when I first started doing competitions at that level. And this just sort of lets me give the lads something which is a shortcut, which I never had. I'd have killed for this when I first started. It's not easy to take when you think you're a good angler. I mean, I turned up at my first ever World and Europeans, and the system in the UK convinced me I was an awesome river fisherman, and it convinces a lot of people now who've fished at national level a few times that they're phenomenal at everything. And the painful reality is, when you go and fish a pegged comp against some of these other teams, you just turn up for your first 5 or 6 woefully ill-equipped. And this was just my way of trying to give back a little bit, so they didn't have to go through the same stuff I went through. Are you ready? Right, so he's made the first mistake, unfortunately, which is, like I said when I was pegging it, I said I would be neutral. So I told him the peg somewhere down near the tail, the top peg somewhere down near the bridge. He's no fishing, he has got no idea what he's got to play with for an hour and a half. You cannot make a decision like that based off stirring. There's always fish there. So he has messed up now, and he started fishing straight off the off. I gave him, he has to take as long as you want within reason, and he's taken 4 minutes because he wants to get in the river and start chucking flies around. So unfortunately, we're going to have a conversation about that. Got the tree there. I've said at a maximum 3 trout and 3 grayling. He might catch 15, he might catch none. I can't tell that. But if I'd come here now in a qualifier, this early in the season, this cold, and I managed to put 6 fish on the scorecard in the morning like this, I'd be thinking, I'm pretty confident I'm going to win that session. I'm going to be very high up. I might catch 1 and win it. You know, I might catch 10. You just don't know. But it's just to give me something as a bit of a framework. So he started in a not too bad a place. I'm going to quickly now grade the water. The best place to start with the nymph is up in here, in this A bit, which is riffly water, but it's not hard riffly water. It's adjacent to a really fast bit. It's all a good food production zone. So the nymphs are going to move first. The fish are going to go in them sort of places to take advantage of them. They'll have been sitting in the slacker water, saving energy, probably overnight. They'll probably move to those places, hoping for some fly if there's been some good hatches. You know, I've got some issues with his approach. You know, he's cutting a diagonal straight across the river. I mean, he might have a reason for it, but for me, I would have gone up this inside edge first. I'm probably not the easiest of captains, if I'm being honest. And a lot of that comes from the fact that I want everybody to do well. And, you know, I put myself under a lot of pressure and I'm hard on myself with stuff. And probably sometimes you could argue that I'm hard on, you know, on the team to some degree. But, you know, ultimately, since I've been captain, I like to think that, you know, the events versus, and this is no disrespect to some of the previous captains, managers, because, you know, it was a different time and, you know, they gave of their free time willing and freely and did a lot of work and even their own money at times to support us. But I've tried to bring, I think, a level of organisation and pre-preparation that probably wasn't there before. Well, it wasn't because I used to fish in those teams and I know what it was like. So I tend to try and make the trip and the event fit for what we're trying to achieve rather than doing it for comfort or ease of organisation.
As a captain, he's very, very, very good. He's very strict. There's a lot of thought behind everything that Howard does, gets you to do. Yeah, he's a first-class manager, probably the best we've ever had. So I hope he keeps going for a few more years, to be honest. But yes, he can be a bit moody at times, you know what I mean? But you have to put up with that.
They call me Lake Boy because that's pretty much where I came from with my fishing. It was mostly still waters, and yeah, I'm the southerner in the group, so they tend to take the mick out of me a lot, them being all northern pretty much. My dad was always a keen angler and he introduced me to fly fishing, and then a year later I ended up going into the England youth and worked my way through to the seniors from there. When you reach a world championship, that's as high as it gets, apart from a medal or that for a team. So yeah, it's definitely at the top, and the feeling when you're representing your country in a world championships is just fantastic.
Yeah, I think whatever sport you're involved in, if you reach the top of that sport, representing your country, that's the pinnacle. Every time you are on the stage and your opening ceremony and you hear the anthem, come on, it doesn't matter how many times you do it, you probably ask sportsmen that represent the country hundreds of times, when they hear that anthem playing, it really does make the hairs on your neck stand up. Yeah, I think Howard as a teammate, he's experienced, he's been there, done it, he's lived through the pressure of coming on to the last session in first place individually. He's won team gold, individual gold. So yeah, he's very good for the team. He's a very organised guy. He's always thinking about how he can improve his approach. And he'll keep you right, you know, he's not frightened. If he thinks you're doing something wrong, he's straight on your back telling you what you can probably do to change it, what you should be doing instead.
So what he's doing, his concentration levels have just dropped. When that fly goes in the river, the focus is what's happening. If the fly is in play, you fish the fly. Come to the end of the drift, you set the hook, you put it back in, you concentrate. What you don't do is throw it in and move. A lot of people are too busy thinking, I need to fish this, I need to cover this water, without actually fishing the fly properly. I'd rather make 50 perfect drifts with intent than make 150 without concentrating. That's good, he's hooked one. The problem is, he's making another massive mistake. He's dragging it back up the river towards him. In a competition, as the takes get pickier when they've been picked on, fishing gets harder, these fish don't take as confidently. So he's still playing it from upstream. He really needs to be below it. There's a good chance you'll pull the hook. Not doing a good bad job, he's keeping the rod low. The other mistake he's made, he's deployed his net when he's not ready to net it. Now what happens, if that fish ran, missed it with the net, it's not good. If that fish ran, he'd have to drop the net. Well done, mate. Session 1, you'll get away with that. Session 3, 4, 5, when those fish have been pricked and they've been caught, you can't get away with that. You've got to treat every fish like what it is, an absolute, you know, must net. You know, you must get it in that net. This is where it makes a big difference. B nymph, A nymph. It's taken him 20 minutes to get to where I would have started. Oh, another one. Yeah, another fish. Not getting below it. Go, well done, mate. And a nice trout. Good one. But I have to say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's had 6 fish, which is good. That's time, mate. Well done. It isn't actually time. He's got 4 minutes left. But he'll not forget his watch again. 4 minutes is a fish. It's 2 fish. Angler, mate. Aye, well done. Good job. You dry?
No.
Well, I thought you'd been Aye, it's good, mate. You caught more than I expected. I had 6 as a max. I didn't think you'd get to 6, but you did, which suggests to me that the number should probably have been 10, because you did waste a lot of time. But we'll take it back a step. The first thing, and this is why this is done, this is why I do this, because it will highlight the mistakes. It is difficult, I'll be honest, it is difficult blending being captain, manager, organiser and competitor, because, you know, 99% of the other countries do not do that. They've got a good, strong sort of management network around them, and they have a fishing captain who also is an angler. So it is difficult for me to balance all of those things at the same time. Since then, it's definitely affected my performance in the last few Worlds, unfortunately. And that's just because, you know, I've spent probably more time trying to bring the level of some of the team, not all of the team, because there's some really good anglers and they're all good anglers, but I've tried to put more effort into getting us to fish better as a cohesive unit at a higher level.
I got into fly fishing when I was 18 years old. I started on the reservoirs bank fishing for the first 10 years. And then I progressed onto the boats, and I've been doing lock style all my life. And then I eventually got into the river fishing about 15 years ago. It'd be great to get a medal, but don't forget, we are up against the French and the Spanish on their type of water as well. So, but we've got some good young lads coming through now, so I'd love to see those guys do well.
We've always got a chance. Fishing's fishing. I think if you've got somebody like Howard in your team who's been there, seen it, done it, won the medal, you've always got a chance. You know, as long as we work together as a team, I think we've got a good chance of coming in the medal position. We finished 10th last year, so I guess the first target would be to improve on the 10th place. It'll be very tough. Obviously, you've got the home team, probably one of the best teams in the world, along with Spain. The location of the championships this year is very near the Spanish border, so it's practically a home competition for them as well. So being the top two teams in the world, it'll be tough to sort of beat those guys. But if you're not going there with the target to beat those guys, then you shouldn't really be going there at all, I guess.
To be honest, even though it's in France, it's pretty much always a similar group of teams that are to be most feared, if you like. The French, obviously the French team is superb. You know, it's a really, really technically strong team of young, you know, fit anglers, all of a very high consistent level, still riding high on, you know, a really good result in Slovakia, both individually and as a team. And you know, they're one of the best fly fishing nations in the world, so you know, they're always in, especially when it's going to be at home. Then you've got Spain. You know, the Spanish team fish a lot of similar waters. They're not that far away from them geographically. They can travel. And then you can't rule the Czechs out. They've had a few more ups and downs in the last few years. They were really dominant for years, and they went through a little bit of a blip, but you know, they're back up there again now. And then you've always got teams like Italy as well, who can, on the day, they can be right in the mix. You know, Finland now. And then, you know, you've got the American squad, who for years, you know, you could pretty much say they were always going to come in the bottom third. They were never going to get out of the bottom placings. Since they changed their system and went from a purely selected team to a qualified team where they've got to actually fight for the places, the results have improved massively. And you know, they've had a few medals now, and they're always pushing, and they're all good anglers. So you know, it will be a very, very difficult competition to break into the top 16 places even, never mind breaking into the medals. Yeah, so departure day is Friday. We've got a 5:55 a.m. flight, I think, from Manchester, and then from then on in, it's you know, it's just a chain of, what have we got, 7 or 8 days of practice, split between rivers and lakes, and then we've got a couple of down days where effectively the official part of the competition starts before we get into 5 days of straight competition. I mean, a lot of people say when I come back, did you have a nice holiday? It's definitely not a holiday. It's a hard slog for 2 and a bit weeks, and hopefully with something at the end of it.